Rain hammered my windshield so hard the wipers started losing the fight, and I still kept the winch cable tight, because if I let go, the SUV would slide back into the ditch and take my truck with it. You learn early in towing that you can't muscle a recovery. You can only set angles and hope gravity isn't in a bad mood. But there I was anyway, boots sunk to the ankle, rainwater running down the back of my neck, shoulder jammed into cold steel like I could intimidate physics into behaving. Headlights sat way back behind me. 2 cars pulled onto the shoulder at a safe distance. People filming. People always filming. Their beams turned the rain into glitter and made everything look like a clip waiting for a caption. Then everything went dark for half a second. Not cloud passed over the moon dark. Not someone's high beams dipped dark. More like the whole world blinked. Like somebody covered the road and the trees and the sky with a hand and then lifted it again. My radio hissed. Dispatch didn't use my name. She usually did, even when she was annoyed. Dale, take Maple, Dale. Stop arguing, Dale. You're not a cop. But the voice that came through my speaker didn't grab for me like that. It just fell out of the static like something too heavy to hold. Detour, she said. One word. Flat. Like a judge. I stopped pulling. The winch motor whined down, and the cable trembled once like a live thing relaxing. I held the remote in my gloved hand and listened to the rain chewing my hood. Detour, I said. I'm literally in a ditch right now. January. A little pause. Paper crackled through the speaker, like she'd unfolded something old. Like she'd been keeping it somewhere it shouldn't be. Read it back, she said. If you don't, I'm not logging you as a call. I'm logging you as missing. I almost laughed because that's what you do when someone says something insane with a straight face. But it didn't come. My throat stayed tight, like my body had already decided laughter would be a waste of air. Jan, I said softer, what the fuck are you talking about? She didn't answer that. She started reading, and the way she read it, slow, careful, like the words themselves could bite her, made the back of my hands go cold inside my gloves. County 17 Detour Protocol. If you're on it, you're already late. Do not turn on your high beams. If you need them, you're already being shown something. When the mile marker repeats, 17.3 to 17.3, stop on the shoulder and kill the engine. Count 60 in your head. Do not check your phone. Do not look at your clock. If you hear crying from the ditch, keep your eyes on the center line. You can slow down. You cannot stop. If you stop, you'll be asked to help. If you see a yellow school bus ahead with its hazards on, do not pass it. Do not follow it. Turn around at the first safe gravel patch, even if you have to back up. If something hits your truck, do not get out to check. If you must stop, lock the doors and put your hands on the wheel until your heartbeat slows. She stopped. The line stayed open. Static breathed. I could hear her in the background, not speaking, just existing, like she was holding the handset to her mouth in case she had to yank me back from something with her voice. I looked at the SUV hanging from my cable, half out of the ditch, tilted like a drunk trying to stand. In the driver's seat, a guy in a soaked hoodie was slamming his palms on the glass and screaming at me. I couldn't hear him over the rain and my idling engine, but I could read the shape of his rage anyway. I keyed the mic. This some hazing bullshit from the night shift? Because I'm not in the mood. No, Jan said immediately, sharp enough to make my finger twitch on the button. Pull him out and get off 17. I stared at the road ahead, black and narrow with trees pressing in on both sides, and I felt stupid for the little prickle of fear I got. It's a road. It's rain. It's a county route everybody complains about because it's boring and dark and deer love it. Still, missing. Why would I be missing? I asked. Another pause. Another crackle like she adjusted the paper. Because if I say your name while you're on that road, it can use it. I actually did laugh then. It was a single ugly bark that fogged my windshield. Jesus Christ, I said. Okay, whatever. I got it. Rules. Sure. You're not taking it serious, she said. And that one sentence carried something I'd never heard from her at the desk. Naked fear, packed tight like a fist. I exhaled and unhooked the remote from my belt. I'm listening. Then read it back, she said. I didn't want to. Saying those rules out loud felt like signing something, like agreeing, like raising my hand in a classroom I never wanted to be in. But I read them back anyway, my voice sounding too loud in my cab when I climbed in to keep the rain off. No high beams. Repeat marker, stop, kill engine, count 60, don't check phone, don't look at clock. Crying in ditch, don't stop. School bus, don't pass, don't follow, turn around. If something hits truck, don't get out. Jan let out a breath on the other end like she'd been holding it. Good. Write the first 3 on something and put it on your dash. Why? I asked. Because you'll forget, she said. It'll make you forget. I dug around my glove box with one hand while the other tapped the wheel. Receipts, busted pen, a pack of stale mints. No sticky notes. I found an old inspection tag and tore a strip off the edge, then wrote with the pen until the ink finally decided to work. In O'Bright's. 17.3 repeats. Stop, count 60. Don't stop for crying. I wedged it under the corner of my dash with the nearest thing, a cracked plastic coin tray, so it sat right in my line of sight. It looked ridiculous, like I was reminding myself to buy milk. Outside, hoodie guy threw his door open before I even finished spooling the cable back in. He splashed toward my truck, arms wide, mouth running. I caught pieces when he got close enough. 2 hours could have died. You people, the usual greatest hits. I stepped down, rain instantly cold on my face, and he got right up into my space like he wanted to smell my fear. You just sat there, he shouted, spittle mixing with rain. You just sat there like you didn't give a shit. I pointed at the mud, the angle, the cable. You slid off because you were riding your brakes and texting. I'm not a magician. I pulled you out. Don't tell me what I... He stepped closer. Normally, I keep it professional. Normally. But something about Jan saying missing and the way the world had blinked, it had my nerves raw like a scraped knuckle. I leaned in close enough that he could hear me over the rain, and I said, "Get in your car and go the fuck home." He flinched. It wasn't a big reaction, just a small muscle twitch at the corner of his mouth, like he hadn't expected ugly from me. Then he looked past me at the tow truck, at the size of it, at the winch that could drag him anywhere I wanted. He backed off, still muttering. "This is bullshit. I'm calling. Call whoever," I said. "Get out of the road." He went. People act brave until you make it real. I climbed back into my cab, shut the door, and just sat there for a second with my hands on the wheel. My fingers shook when I reached for the key. Not from cold. From the way Jan's voice had sounded when she said the road could use a name. "Jan," I said into the radio, trying to keep my tone casual. "You want to explain why County 17 needs a protocol like it's a damn chemical spill?" Static. A breath. "You'll get off it," she said. "Then you could be mad." "That's not an answer." "No," she agreed quietly. "It's not." The rain eased up as soon as I rolled forward. It didn't stop. It just thinned like the sky got tired of hitting me. That made everything worse. The engine noise filled the gaps, and silence crept in around it, thick, pressing like it wanted in. Noistretlitz, which tight on both sides. Ditches deep enough to swallow a sedan. The kind of road where your headlights feel like they're pushing a tunnel through black water. Mile marker 17.1. 17.2. I watched it like a kid watches a horror movie through their fingers. 17.3. I blew out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "Okay," I muttered. "See? Normal." Then the reflective post ahead caught my beams again. 17.3. Same bent metal. Same mud stripe. Same splatter of reflective paint, like a thrown star. My stomach dropped hard, like stepping off a curb you thought was there and finding air. "No," I said out loud because saying it felt like putting my hands on something solid. The rule strip on my dash stared at me. "Stop, count 60. I pulled over onto the shoulder. Gravel crunched under my tires. I killed the engine. Instantly, the cab felt too big and too small at the same time. My headlights cut into the wet trees and made the trunk shine like bones. Rain ticked on the roof. Somewhere out in the woods, something dragged through wet leaves, slow, careful, not like an animal running, more like someone pulling a heavy bag. My phone sat in the cup holder. Screen black, stupid and tempting. I kept my hands off it like it was a hot stove. I stared straight ahead at the double yellow lines glowing in my headlights and started counting in my head. 1, 2, 3. The inside of my truck smelled like wet work boots and old coffee and the faint plastic sweetness of my air freshener. And under it all was something else. Pond smell, like algae and mud stirred up. 10, 11. Something moved in the ditch on the passenger side. I didn't turn my head. I felt the urge, sharp as a hook in my cheek, and I fought it. I watched the center line like it was the only thing keeping me alive. 20, 21. The dragging sound in the woods stopped. My pulse started thudding in my ears like footsteps. 30. A wet, breathy sob came from the ditch. Not a deer, not a fox, a person sound. The kind you hear when someone is trying to swallow their panic and failing. Rule strip, don't stop for crying. I kept counting. 40, 41. The sobbing got closer, like it was right under my passenger window now, like a face pushed up through the grass. My hands tightened on the wheel without me telling them to. 50. The sobbing changed. It turned into something like words, but slurred like a mouth full of mud trying to talk. My brain wanted to make it into language, so bad it hurt. 58, 59, 60. I turned the key. The engine caught immediately, loud and satisfying, like a door slamming in someone's face. I eased onto the road. The sobbing followed. Not behind me, beside me, in the ditch, matching my speed. I clenched the wheel until my knuckles went pale. I kept my eyes locked on the center line like Jan had said, like the lines were a rail I could grip with my gaze. My headlights swept the ditch for a second when the road curved, and I got a flicker of pale skin and grass. A hand, small, white as paper, fingers splayed, reaching toward my tires like it wanted to grab the spinning rubber and be dragged. My stomach lurched, and for one hot second the purest urge in the world hit me. Stop. Help. Get out. Be a human being. It felt clean. It felt right. That's what scared me. That's how it gets you. Not with claws. With decency. I didn't slow. The sobbing spiked into a scream behind my passenger window, high and thin like steam escaping. It wasn't anger. It was frustration, like I'd ruined something. I swallowed bile and kept rolling. A few minutes later, the woods opened into a straight stretch where you could see farther. My shoulders loosened by a fraction. I hated myself for it. That's when I saw something in the road. A little sneaker, Velcro strap, pink marker scribble on the side like some kid wrote their name and then scribbled it out again. It sat in my lane like it had been placed there. My foot twitched toward the brake before my brain even finished recognizing what I was looking at. If I stopped, the crying would win. I drove over it. The tire bumped. Not hard, just enough to make the whole truck shudder through the frame. My spine went cold like I'd hit bone. The scream behind me turned into a chorus for half a second. Multiple voices layered, wet and excited, then snapped off like somebody cut a cable. Silence dropped in so fast my ears rang. I didn't look in the mirror. I didn't let my eyes betray me. I kept my gaze forward and forced my hands to relax on the wheel before they cramped. Jan, I said into the radio, try not to sound like I was shaking. I hit something. She didn't ask what. Don't stop, she said. I'm not stopping. Good. My headlights caught movement ahead. Yellow lights. Not headlights. Hazard flashers. That steady, patient blink like someone parked and waited and didn't mind waiting all night. A school bus sat up ahead, angled just enough to block half the road. Yellow paint dulled by rain. Windows black. The kind of bus you don't think about unless you have to. The kind of bus you only notice when it's too late. Rule: do not pass. Do not follow. Turn around. I slowed without meaning to, like my body was trying to negotiate with me. Blink. Blink. The hazard lights reflected off something metal in the ditch, twisted like a guardrail that had been chewed. The shoulder narrowed here. Trees leaned in close. No place to just whip around. I scanned the right side for gravel. There, barely, a little turnout like someone had backed into it before. Tire tracks cut into the mud. Fresh enough, they still shined wet. The kind of spot hunters use when they don't want anyone to see their truck from the road. I eased toward it. The bus door folded open. No sound, just motion, like the world was underwater and sound didn't travel right. Something stepped down, a kid shape, too small for the first step. It should have hopped. It didn't. It just lowered, smooth and wrong, like gravity remembered it existed and decided to be helpful. I stared harder at the center line. I stared until my eyes burned. My truck rolled forward on idle, like it wanted to creep closer on its own. Nope, I muttered. No, fuck you. I cranked right into the turnout and started backing up. Backing a tow truck is already miserable. Backing it on a narrow, wet road, while your instincts scream at you to look at the thing moving in front of you, is worse. The reverse camera screen blinked once, fizzed, and went gray. Of course, I backed using my mirrors, tiny corrections, throat dry, pulse pounding. The bus hazards kept blinking, steady as a heartbeat. Blink, blink. The kid shape moved again, and my peripheral vision caught a face turned toward me. No eyes, just wet pits, like the sockets had filled with ditch water. The skin looked wrinkled, not old, soaked, like it had been in water too long. My hand slid on the wheel. I wiped them on my jeans without thinking, like sweat mattered right then. I backed faster. Something hit the passenger side of my truck. Not a crash, a slap, like a wet bag of meat thrown hard. My hand flew toward the door handle, pure reflex. Check the damage, get out, do your job. Rule, do not get out. I caught my own wrist midair like I was stopping someone else. I sat there, breathing through my nose, hands back on the wheel, staring forward like if I moved my eyes the world would punish me. Another slap. This one slid downward, leaving a smear on the glass. A palm print, small, dragged like it tried to climb in. The smell in my cab got stronger. Pond scum, algae, that sweet rot of wet leaves that had been sitting too long. I reversed until the bus lights disappeared behind a curve and the road swallowed them like it swallowed everything else. When I couldn't see any yellow anymore, I stopped backing and did a shaky three-point turn in the turnout, tires spitting stones. As I pulled forward, I risked a glance at my passenger window. The handprint was there, not a normal kid hand. The fingers were too long, the palm too narrow. And the smear at the bottom looked like it had dragged with weight, like whatever left it had pressed its whole body to the glass. I kept driving the opposite way, heart punching my ribs, try to remember which direction I'd come from. That's when I saw my own taillights. 2 red dots ahead of me. Same height, same spacing, same faint wobble when the road rippled. At first my brain tried to file it as another vehicle. Then it noticed the exact rhythm. When I eased off the gas, they eased. When I nudged the brake, they nudged. Perfect timing, like a mirror. My mouth went dry, so fast it hurt. Jan, I whispered into the radio and hated myself for whispering. I see my own lights. She didn't hesitate. Reverse, she said. Slow. No horn. No brakes. Reverse until you can't see them. My foot was already moving. I threw the truck into reverse. The taillights ahead stayed for a second like they were surprised I knew the trick. Like something had been enjoying the idea of me following myself forever. Then they drifted away, fading into the trees like embers dropped in water. I reversed until the road ahead turned empty and black, until my headlights showed nothing but wet asphalt and the double yellow leading into nowhere. I stopped. My hands were numb around the wheel. My GPS arrow spun in slow circles like it was drunk. The map flickered and went blank and came back in a different orientation, then flickered again. The radio hissed. Then Jan came through softer than before, almost like she was talking to a kid who'd woken up from a nightmare and didn't know where they were. You did the bus right, she said. Keep going until you hit the old bridge. The bridge. I said, Jan, I don't even know which way. Drive, she cut in. Pick a direction and commit. Don't sit still on 17. Don't let it catch you thinking. That pissed me off more than the fear. The casualness. The way she talked like this was weather. Like the road was just another shift problem. What the hell happened on this road? I snapped. Why the fuck do you have a protocol like it's normal? Paper rustled again, then quieter like the truth tasted bad. Bus went off the bridge 15 years ago, she said. County didn't want the lawsuit. They blamed the driver, blamed the rain, blamed the kids for standing up. Everybody did their little press conference and went home. My stomach tightened. They pulled out most of them, she added. Most. And the rest. I heard myself ask, and my voice sounded wrong, thin like the road had taken some of it already. They paved the approach. They widened the ditch. They put up a sign that says slow children at play like that fixes anything. Her voice went flat again. The road doesn't like lies. The phrase made my skin crawl. Roads don't like anything. Roads are asphalt and gravel and maintenance budgets. Roads don't remember. But as I drove, the trees felt like they were leaning closer, like the darkness on either side of my headlights had weight. Every now and then I heard a scuffing sound in the ditch, little shoes in mud, keeping pace. While I tried not to listen, my brain filled the silence with giggles it invented on its own. I said suddenly, because my mind grabbed at anything normal, why the hell is it always me? Why am I the one on 17 at night? Jan didn't answer right away. When she did, it wasn't dispatcher talk. It was just a tired woman behind a desk at 2 in the morning. Because you're the one who picks up, she said. Because you're the one who says yes. That made me angry enough to keep driving. My headlights caught a fence line up ahead, and my gut clenched before I even registered why. A memorial. Stuffed animals tied to posts, nailed to boards, hung with rain-soaked ribbon. Some clean, some rotted open. Plush matted into clumps, for clinging to wet would like mold. A teddy bear's plastic I hung by a thread, swinging like it was trying to look away. Jan's voice came through again, clipped. Don't read the names. Don't count them. What names? I said, then saw the little laminated cards pinned under some of the toys. Names and marker. Dates. Little hearts. My eyes tried to grab them anyway. My brain wanted details like details could make this understandable. I forced my gaze back to the center line. Okay, I said, like I was agreeing to a traffic sign. The memorial slid past in my peripheral vision, and the ditch on my right gave a wet sigh. The road dipped, and my headlights caught something in the lane. A lunchbox. Metal, old-fashioned, the kind with a handle and a latch. Cartoon dinosaurs stamped on the front, faded and scratched. It sat dead center on the double yellow like it had been placed there carefully. I felt the truck slow without my permission. My foot eased off the gas like my body was trying to be polite. If I hit it and it clanged under my frame, I was going to want to stop. If I stopped, I was going to be asked to help. The rule strip on my dash stared at me like it was daring me to be stupid. I swerved just enough to miss it, tires hissing on wet asphalt. The instant I did, the lunchbox lid popped open by itself. Something pale spilled out and slapped the road. Not paper. Teeth. Tiny teeth mixed with something dark and stringy, like someone had stuffed a mouth into a box and shook it until it broke. They bounced and skittered in my headlights like dice. My stomach lurched so hard I tasted acid. The crying rose from the passenger ditch again. Close enough, I felt it as vibration through the door. It wasn't just crying now. It was breath, wet and eager like something keeping pace and waiting for me to do the right thing. My foot jerked. The brake caught. The truck slowed. Don't. Jan snapped through the radio like she'd seen my foot move. I shoved the accelerator down and made the engine roar. The tow truck surged forward and the teeth vanished behind me. The crying didn't follow this time. That was worse. The road bent and the bridge appeared. Old concrete. Low sidewalls. No lights. The kind of bridge you cross without thinking in daylight and curse in winter when it ices. Creek underneath, swollen with rain. Except the water looked wrong even from a distance. It wasn't flowing under the bridge the way it should. It was moving upward, not like a wave splashing. Like the whole creek was trying to crawl back into the sky. White froth streaking upward in strings, like gravity had been told no and didn't know what to do with that. I said fuck out loud because the word felt like it might anchor me. Jan's voice came through sharp. Do not cross. I can't just sit here. I barked and hated myself because my voice pitched high at the end like a question. You can turn around, she said. You can wait for daylight. You can do anything except cross that when it's pulling. Pulling, I repeated, staring at the water that climbed like hands. I started backing up slow. The approach was narrow. The ditch on both sides looked deeper here, the grass slick and flattened like something had been dragged in and out 100 times. That's when headlights appeared behind me. A sedan, coming fast, no hazards, no caution. Just some asshole blasting down the road like it was normal, like the world hadn't blinked and the mile marker hadn't looped and the ditch hadn't cried. I flashed my hazards. I waved one hand through the windshield like an idiot. I tried to signal him to stop. He didn't slow. He blew past me, tires spraying water, and aimed straight at the bridge. For a split second I froze, watching him like you watch someone step into traffic and you can't move fast enough to grab them. Then I laid on my horn once, one long blast, before I remembered the rules, didn't want noise, didn't want signals, didn't want me acknowledging anything. Fear doesn't read. The sedan hit the bridge and kept going. For a heartbeat, it looked fine. Then the creak surged upward like a muscle flexing, and the back end of the car lifted like an invisible hook grabbed its trunk. The sedan slid sideways, scraped the low wall with a sound I felt through my teeth, and tipped. Not a dramatic flip, a slow, ugly roll like a body giving up. It fell into the creek, and the water didn't splash down. It climbed up around the car, swallowing it from the bottom like a mouth closing. White froth wrapped the doors, the windows, the roof. The car disappeared under upward running water like it was being fed into something above the surface. No screams, no honking, nothing. Just the bridge standing there like it didn't care. My hand was shaking so hard the steering wheel buzzed under my palms. In the silence after, the ditch on both sides of the bridge made a new sound. Not crying, laughter, thin, wet giggles, a bunch of kids sharing a secret. I swallowed and realized my mouth was full of spit like I was going to throw up. The radio hissed. Jan didn't speak for a moment. When she did, her voice had that tired cruelty people get when they've watched the same horror too many times. You tried, she said. Don't go down there. I wasn't. I started then stopped. Because I had been. In my head, I'd already pictured getting out, walking to the edge, peering down like a moron. Like I could do something. I wasn't a hero. I didn't want to be. I wanted to be alive. I reversed away from the bridge until the memorial should have come back into view. Except it didn't. The fence line was bare. No stuffed animals. No wet plast. No events. Just a line of posts and nothing between them. Like it had never existed. I blinked hard like my eyes were glitching. The mile marker ahead read 17.3. My stomach sank through the floor. No. I drove forward anyway because sitting still on that road felt like dying slower. 17.3. Then, a little farther, 17.3 again. Same bent post, same mud stripe, same reflective splatter. My hand started shaking so hard the wheel trembled. My shoulders cramped. My jaw ached from clenching. I pulled over again out of pure panic and killed the engine because the rule strip told me to, because I didn't know what else to do. The cab went too quiet. The rain had stopped. Not ease stopped. The woods dripped instead, slow and patient, each drop loud in the silence. I stared at the center line and counted. 1, 2, 3. My phone screen stayed black in the cup holder. I didn't touch it. I didn't look at the clock on my dash. I didn't even glance at the little digital radio display. Scare my eyes would snag a time and make it real. 20. Something shifted in the back seat. A wet inhale right behind my headrest, like a kid leaning forward to whisper in my ear. My whole body locked. A smell bloomed in the cab. Pond water, wet leaves, that sweet rot. Stronger now, like whatever it was had brought the ditch with it. I kept my eyes forward so hard they watered. 30. The back seat made a soft sound, like fabric sticking to skin. like something soaked settling into upholstery. 40. I heard the faintest click. Seatbelt hardware. The metal tongue tapping the buckle. Just once. My scalp prickled. 50. The breathing behind me got closer. Not louder. Closer. Like it had moved forward in the seat, leaning toward the space between my shoulders. 60. My hand went to the key. My fingers shook so badly I missed the ignition the first time. Before I could try again, a voice, thin, wet, slurred like a mouth full of creek water, whispered right behind my ear. "Help me unbuckle." Cold water dripped onto my thigh. One drop, then another. Something small shifted onto the center console. I felt the weight change, subtle but real, like a child climbing over the armrest. I didn't turn around. Turning around is how you admit it's real. I stared forward, hands welded to the wheel, breathing through my teeth. Fingers touched the back of my neck, too cold, too soft, testing like they were deciding where to grab. My whole body went rigid like I'd been flash frozen. The fingers on my neck weren't strong. They weren't even properly fingers the way you want them to be. Too soft at the pads, too cold at the joints, like the thing had never warmed up in its life and didn't plan to start. It touched me the way a kid tests a hot stove. Quick, curious, except there was no heat. And it was behind me, in my truck, on my seat. I kept my eyes locked on the center line painted on wet road because if I turned my head even a fraction, my brain would have to draw a line between "I heard crying in the ditch" and "it climbed inside." The second line is the one that breaks you. The wet whisper tickled the cartilage of my ear. "Help me unbuckle." A drop of cold water slid down the back of my neck and disappeared under my collar. I wanted to slap at it, like an idiot, like it was a mosquito. My hand stayed welded to the wheel because the rule strip on my dash was suddenly the only religion I had. Nobody eats. 17.3 repeats. Stop count 60/don't stop for crying. It didn't say anything about wet kids crawling into your cab, because why would it? Who writes that down and still gets up in the morning? The thing on the console shifted again. The plastic creaked, subtle, like it was trying not to make noise. Like it knew noise would make it real. I forced my voice into the radio mic without looking down at it. January. Static. Then her breath. Like she'd been listening for me to say it. Like she was right there in the cab with me, too. "Don't say my name," she snapped. "Don't say yours. Don't say anyone's. I've got something." I swallowed. "In my truck." "I know," she said. And I hated her for how calm she sounded. Not relaxed calm. Train calm. The calm you get when you've watched the same ugly thing happen enough times that your body saves fear for later. I kept my eyes forward. "What do I do?" "Drive," she said. "Hands on wheel. Don't talk to it. Don't answer questions. If it asks you for help, don't give it help. If it asks you for your name, do not give a name." The wet voice behind my ear brightened like it heard Jan through the speaker. "Yelp." The fingers pressed into the back of my neck again, a little harder this time, like it had gotten impatient. Coldness bled down my spine. My right hand twitched toward the ignition. My fingers missed the key again because they were shaking like I'd been submerged in ice water. In the back seat, something made a little disappointed sound, like a kid realizing the candy machine didn't take their coin. "Dale," it whispered. My name, soft as a secret. My heart slammed once, so hard it hurt. Jan's voice cut through the static, razor sharp. "Ignore it." I didn't remember telling her it knew my name. I didn't have to. She already knew that part, too. I jammed the key in, turned it. The engine roared alive, loud enough that for one blessed second it drowned everything out. It was like turning on a fan in a haunted room. Still haunted, but at least you can't hear the whispers as clearly. The thing on the console shifted with the vibration. It steadied itself like it had done this before. Like it had been in moving vehicles since before I was born. My foot eased off the brake. The truck rolled. I didn't look at the mirrors. I didn't look at the clock. I didn't look at anything except that stupid double yellow line, shining faintly in my low beams like the only safe path across a dark lake. Behind me, wet breath fogged the side window. "Help me," it said again. and the word help landed in my chest like a hook. It wasn't a scream anymore. It was conversational, familiar, like it belonged in my cab the same way my coffee cups did. It moved closer. The cold fingers slid from my neck down to my shoulder. A grip, not tight but claiming, like a child holding onto their dad's coat in a crowd. And my brain, my dumb, empathetic, stupid human brain, tried to picture what kind of kid would be soaked like pond water and still asking politely. That thought almost killed me, because empathy is a door and the road knows how to lean on doors. Dale, it sang, dragging my name out like it was tasting it. Doll, unbuckle. I could feel it reaching toward my seatbelt latch. I could hear the faint click-click as something damp and small tapped at the red button. My body tried to help on reflex. Like if someone says unbuckle, your hand goes there. Like you're trained. Jan's voice came through again, lower now, urgent and controlled. If it gets your belt off, it can pull you out without opening the door. My mouth went dry. How do you know that? A pause too long. Then, because that's how they found the driver. I didn't want that picture. My brain made it anyway. Seatbelt undone, door closed, body on the shoulder like it had been poured out. Like something had reached through the fabric of a vehicle the way water reaches through cloth. I tightened my grip on the wheel and drove faster. The road ahead stayed the same. Wet black ribbon, trees like walls, ditch like a mouth. But something was different now. The air felt thick, like my headlights weren't cutting through darkness as much as pushing against it. The mile marker flashed by. 17.3. My stomach clenched so hard it felt like my organs shifted. Then again, farther ahead. 17.3. My brain started screaming, not in words, just in raw animal alarm. You're not moving, you're not leaving, you're being kept. Jan, I said, teeth clenched. I'm looping. I know, you know. I barked, and the anger felt like a flare in a swamp. Then tell me how to get off this goddamn road. I can't tell you, she said. For a second, I thought I'd misheard. What? I can't tell you while you're on it, she said. And there was something in her voice like apology, trying to survive. If I say it, it hears it. If it hears it, it changes it. The wet thing behind me laughed. Not giggling this time. A little wet chuckle like bubbles rising in a puddle. It liked that. It liked being included. I wanted to smash the radio off the dash. Instead, I swallowed my rage and said, "Then what can you tell me?" Jan exhaled. "You already have the first 3 rules. You followed them and you're still alive. That's not nothing. Now you need the one we don't write down." My heart thudded. "Why don't you write it down?" "Because writing makes it real," she said. "And because people read it and think they're smart enough to break it." In the back seat, cold fingers traced the seam of my seatbelt strap like it was learning. Jan's voice dropped to a whisper. "The road doesn't want your truck. It wants your attention." "What does that mean?" I hissed. "It means it keeps trying to make you look," she said. "Make you turn. Make you stop. Make you be decent. If you give it your attention, it builds you a story you'll live inside." I felt the cold fingers on my belt again. That red button was inches from my right hip. My hand kept wanting to slap it away. "Okay," I said, forcing my voice steady. "So I don't look. I don't stop. I don't. It also wants you to forget you have choices," she cut in. "So you need to make a choice that's yours. Something stupid and human it can't predict." I almost laughed from pure stress. "Like what, Jan? Like singing? Like fucking? Like ruining something," she said. The words hit me weird. Ruining something. That sounded wrong. That sounded like giving it what it wanted. But then she added, "Not yourself. Something you own." I stared forward. The road bent slightly. The trees blurred at the edges. In my peripheral vision, my passenger window still had that smeared handprint from earlier. It looked darker now, like the glass had absorbed it. The thing behind me pressed its wet face close enough to my ear that I could feel cold dampness without it touching me. "Dale," it whispered again. "Why won't you help?" That question, innocent on the surface, had a trapdoor underneath it. If I answered, if I justified myself, if I explained, I'd be in conversation. In story. in a loop built out of my own guilt. I clenched my jaw until my teeth hurt and said nothing. My eyes flicked down accidentally, just a fraction, to the dash. The little strip of paper with my rules was there, vibrating with the engine. Under it, my odometer glowed. The digits looked normal, except the last two flickered. For a second, it read 17.3. My skin prickled. My truck wasn't just on the road. It was being measured by it, like the road had gotten inside my electronics. My hand moved before I fully knew what I was doing. I reached under the steering column and popped the panel where the fuse box lived. Plastic snapped. The sound felt too loud. Jan's voice snapped in my ear. "What are you doing?" "Making a choice," I said. I didn't have a plan. I had panic and a general knowledge of how my own truck worked. I yanked the fuse diagram off the inside of the cover with shaking fingers and scanned it. Tail. Park. My taillights. The red dots I'd seen ahead of me. The thing that could be mirrored. I hooked my finger under the fuse and pulled. The dash blinked. The interior lights dimmed. The truck kept running. Behind me, the wet thing made an angry little sound, like a kid denied a toy. The road behind me vanished into black. No red glow. No easy follow me. No mimic. I drove on low beams with no taillights, which is illegal and stupid and dangerous and absolutely not something I'd ever do on a normal night. This wasn't a normal night. Instantly, the feeling of being watched from behind eased by a fraction, like I'd turn off a camera. Jan let out a breath on the radio. "Good," she said, and it sounded like relief. The wet thing hissed behind my ear. Its fingers tightened on my shoulder now. The cold stung. Not pain exactly, but pressure that said, "I'm here. I'm real. You can't ignore me forever." "Dale," it whispered, and the way it said my name now wasn't pleading. It was possessive. My throat tightened. I could feel sweat trickling down my ribs under my jacket, even though the cab was cold. Up ahead, the road straightened into a longer stretch. My headlights reached farther. The trees parted for a moment, showing an open field on the right. A dark expanse with low weeds and a fence line. The fence line. My brain snapped to it like a drowning man grabbing a rope. The memorial wasn't there earlier. It had vanished like it never existed. But here, something pale hung on the posts, fluttering faintly in the dead air. Not ribbons. Paper. Dozens of little laminated cards tied up with string, spinning like teeth in a wind that didn't touch anything else. I kept my eyes on the center line, but let my peripheral vision drink it in. Each card had writing. Names, dates, hearts. My stomach flipped because the temptation to read them was so sharp it felt like hunger. Like the road had reached into my skull and scratched the part of me that wants to know. "Don't," Jan warned immediately, like she could see my gaze shift. "I'm not," I rasped. The wet thing behind me whispered, "Read mine." I kept driving. The fence line stretched longer than it should have, the posts repeating like mile markers. The cards multiplied. The paper fluttered faster, like something was fanning them. Then I saw it, just a flicker among the cards. A pink sneaker, the same one I'd run over earlier. It was tied by its laces to a post, dangling over the ditch like a baited hook. It swung slowly, perfectly still between blinks of my headlights, like it was waiting for me to look directly at it. My mouth went dry. I felt the wet thing shift behind me, excited. "Mine," it whispered. "That's mine." My grip on the wheel tightened until my knuckles burned. The ditch on the right made a soft, wet sucking sound like something lifting out of mud. I did not stop. I did not look. I drove past the sneaker like it didn't matter. The wet thing made a sound of frustration that was almost a sob. Cold fingers dug into my shoulder. My truck lurched, just a tiny jerk, as if something grabbed the rear bumper for a split second and yanked. I almost swerved into the opposite lane. My heart slammed. My throat closed. Jan's voice came sharp and steady. "I'm trying," I gasped. "You're doing it," she said. "Keep going. The fuse trick bought you a little time." "Time for what?" Jan hesitated, and I could hear that paper again on her end, like she was holding something she wasn't supposed to. "Time to pay," she said. "What the hell does that mean?" The wet thing behind me giggled again, like it loved the word. Jan's voice tightened. "The road always gets something. If it doesn't get you, it gets a piece of you." My mouth tasted like metal. "Like what?" "I don't know," she said. And for the first time, she sounded honest in a way I didn't like. "Sometimes it's your voice. Sometimes it's your memory. Sometimes it's someone who calls you after." A cold dread rolled over me. After, Jan didn't answer. The road dipped, and my headlights caught a shape ahead that made my chest go tight. A stop sign. That should not be here. County 17 didn't have intersections this far out. It was just woods and ditches and the occasional driveway. But there it was, red octagon, reflective, clean like it had been put up yesterday. Under it, a street sign, White Oak LN. I knew that name. My neighborhood. Not on this road, not out here. White Oak Lane was 10 minutes from my house. A normal street with mailboxes and kids' bikes and a guy who always parked his boat in the driveway like an asshole. My brain lit up with desperate hope, so fast it felt like heat. A way out. Home. Behind my ear, the wet thing whispered, "Turn." Jan's voice came through like a slap. "Do not take it." "What?" I barked. "It says, it can put any sign it wants in front of you," she said. "It can show you your house, your mom, your dog, whatever it needs. If you turn onto that lane, you'll never find your way back." My eyes burned with tears I didn't remember forming. The stop sign glowed in my headlights like a lighthouse. The side road looked real, gravel, tire tracks, a mailbox. On the mailbox, in my peripheral vision, I swear to God I saw my last name. It wasn't a trick like the mile marker repeating. It was specific, personal. It was a hook baited with my own life. My foot hovered over the brake. My hand trembled. The wet thing behind me pressed closer, its cold lips almost touching my ear. "Dale, that's yours." My throat clenched on a sob. The idea of getting off this road was so desperate, it was almost holy. Jan's voice softened, just a fraction. "Listen to me," she said. "It can't make you turn. It can only make you want to." I stared at the center line. It ran straight ahead. It didn't offer comfort. It didn't promise home. It was just pain. I kept going. I rolled past the stop sign without turning. The moment I passed it, the sign changed in my rear peripheral vision. Not the words exactly, but the feeling, like the air around it shifted. The stop sign looked older, rusted, crooked. The street sign no longer read White Oak. It read County 17 Detour. My stomach turned. The wet thing behind me screamed. Not a kid scream, not human. A wet, tearing sound like fabric ripping underwater. Cold fingers clawed at my shoulder. The truck jolted again, harder, like something hit the rear quarter panel. The cab rocked. My teeth clacked. Rule: if something hits your truck, do not get out. I didn't. I couldn't. My whole body was braced like I expected the door to be ripped open from the outside. The wet thing thrashed in the back seat. The upholstery squealed. Something banged against the window. Then, just as suddenly, it went still. Silence dropped. Not peaceful silence. Expectant silence. Like the room goes quiet when a teacher calls on you. The wet voice returned, calm and close. "Why?" It whispered, "Won't you help me?" I kept my mouth shut. It waited, and that waiting was worse than screaming. Waiting means it expects you to break. My chest hurt from holding my breath. I forced air in through my nose slowly, quietly, like I was trying not to spook a wild animal. The road ahead narrowed. The trees pressed closer. My headlights felt weaker, like the darkness was absorbing them. And then I saw it again. The school bus. Hazards blinking. Blink, blink. It sat in my lane like it owned the road, like it was the road. Yellow paint slick with wetness that shouldn't still be there because the rain had stopped. I felt bile rise. My hands went numb. Jan's voice came instantly. "Bus rule." "I know," I whispered. The wet thing in the back seat perked up like a dog hearing a treat bag. "Don't pass," Jan said. "Don't follow. Turn around at the first gravel." "I don't see," I started. Then my headlights caught it. A gravel patch on the left, barely wide enough for my truck to angle into. But something was wrong about it. The gravel looked pale, almost white, like crushed bone. My stomach flipped. The bus door folded open again, silent as before. And this time, more than one shape stepped down. Little silhouettes. Too smooth, too steady, like they were sliding out of the bus instead of climbing. I kept my eyes on the center line, but my peripheral vision filled with movement, small figures spreading out, heading toward the shoulder, toward the ditch, toward me. The wet thing behind my ear whispered, "Delighted friends." My throat tightened around a swear. I cranked my wheel into the gravel patch and started backing up, just like before. The reverse camera screen stayed dead. The mirrors showed darkness and wet road. Hazards blinked behind me, steady and patient. Blink, blink. As I reversed, something tapped my passenger window, light like a knuckle. Top, top. Then another tap on the rear door glass. Top, top, top. Little hands all around. My skin crawled under my jacket. I didn't look. I couldn't. The taps turned into slaps, then palms dragging, squeaking wet across glass. A chorus of whispers rose outside, not loud enough to make words, but enough to make my brain want to understand. My body wanted to stop and roll a window down just to make it stop. Just to clarify, that's how you die. Not to claws, to curiosity. I reversed faster, tires crunching gravel. Something banged hard against the back of the cab, making the whole truck shudder. The wet thing behind me laughed right in my ear, like it was enjoying the show. My mind flashed back to the sedan on the bridge, getting swallowed upward. The idea of being yanked out of my truck and poured into that creek made my throat close. I reversed until the bus hazards faded around a bend. The tapping outside, known as kids, faded too, like it was tied to the bus's line of sight. When the last yellow blink disappeared, the air in my cab changed. Less pressure, less wet smell. The wet thing behind me went quiet again. Jan's voice came through, tense. "Keep reversing until you hit the split." "What split?" I hissed. "You'll know," she said. "Of course." I reversed with my hazards on, no taillights, feeling blind and wrong and illegal. The darkness behind me swallowed my headlights as soon as I passed it. After what felt like an hour, but was probably minutes, the road widened into a spot where it branched. One lane curving right, one lane curving left. No sign, no marqueur, just a fork that shouldn't exist on a county route. My headlights caught something in the center of the fork. A child-sized backpack. Blue. Vet. Lying flat like it had been dropped. The wet thing behind me sucked in a breath like it had smelled food. "Mine," it whispered, and its fingers tightened on my shoulder again. Jan's voice turned hard. "Don't stop. How do I pick a side if I don't?" "Pick," she snapped. "Either one. Just pick. Make a choice." My eyes burned. My brain screamed that the backpack was bait, that stopping would be death, that driving over would be like driving over that sneaker and hearing the chorus. But Jan said make a choice. Something stupid and human. I made mine. I jerked the wheel left and floored it. The truck surged forward, engine growling. The tires hissed on wet asphalt. As I passed the backpack, the zipper pulled itself open. I saw it only in a flash, pale things inside like little bones or sticks, and a lunchbox handle poking out like a tongue. Then it was gone behind me. The wet thing in my back seat screamed again, furious now, and the cold fingers on my shoulder dug in like claws. And no, it shrieked, and that sound finally broke the last illusion that this was a kid. It was a kid-shaped hunger. My cab filled with pond stink. The radio crackled. The air felt thick like fog, even though the windshield was clear. My headlights dimmed. I heard the faintest sound beneath the engine. Water. Not rain. Running water. Close. My heart stuttered. The road ahead dropped, and suddenly the old bridge was there again. Except it wasn't the bridge from before. This one was older, lower, concrete stained dark, sidewalls streaked with algae, and underneath it, the creek wasn't pulling upward anymore. It was still, too still. Water should move. Even slow water moves. This creek sat like a sheet of black glass, reflecting my headlights back at me in a way that made my eyes hurt. Jan's voice came through the radio, whispering like she didn't want the air to hear her. "This is your chance." My throat went tight. "You told me not to cross." "Not when it's pulling," she said. "It's not pulling now." The wet thing behind me went silent. Its breath hitched, like it was afraid of something too. That terrified me more than anything else. I eased off the gas. The bridge looked like a throat. The black water beneath looked like an eye. Jan said, "Do you have anything in your cab that's not yours?" My mind raced. "What?" "Anything from the road," she clarified. "Anything you picked up without knowing." My stomach lurched. I thought of the pink sneaker I'd run over, the lunchbox teeth, the backpack. I hadn't picked them up, but the cold water dripping onto my thigh earlier. The smell, the handprint. My eyes flicked down to the floorboard by the passenger seat. A small object sat there, dark against the rubber mat. A Velcro strap, a child's sneaker strap. My stomach flipped so hard I almost gagged. I hadn't brought that into my truck. I hadn't noticed it. It was just there, like it had fallen off when I ran over the sneaker. Or like the road placed it there as a tag. A piece of evidence. My hand twitched toward it, then stopped. Touching it felt like touching a live wire. Jan's voice stayed calm, steady. "You need to give it back." "Give what back?" I rasped. "The piece it put on you," she said. "If you don't, it can follow you. That's how it marks you." My skin crawled. "How do I?" "Throw it in the water," she said. "Under the bridge." Without looking, the wet thing behind me made a low, wet noise, almost a growl. "No," it whispered, and my blood turned to ice because it wasn't pleading now. It was warning. I tightened my grip on the wheel. The idea of stopping on a bridge over still black water while something sat behind me with cold hands on my shoulder sounded like the worst plan ever made. But Jan had been right so far, and the wet thing sounded scared. I eased onto the bridge. The concrete hummed under my tires. The low walls closed in. The black water reflected my headlights and made the whole world feel upside down. Halfway across, the mile marker in my peripheral vision flashed. 17.3. My heart slammed. The wet thing behind me whispered, "Don't." I stopped. My tires squeaked on damp concrete. My truck idled, vibrating like a nervous animal. The cab went still except for the engine. I kept my hands on the wheel and stared at the center line that ran across the bridge like a tightrope. My right hand moved slowly, carefully, down toward the passenger floorboard. The wet thing's fingers tightened on my shoulder. Cold pressure. Threat. I didn't turn my head. I reached blind, feeling along the rubber mat until my fingertips brushed the Velcro strap. It was cold wet, not damp like rain. Well, I could have been soaked in creek water for a long time. When I touched it, a whisper flashed through my skull. Not heard with my ears, but felt like a thought that wasn't mine. Mine. My stomach turned. My fingers wanted to recoil. I clenched my jaw and grabbed it anyway. The moment I lifted it, the wet thing behind me shrieked like I'd ripped a tooth out of its mouth. The truck rocked as something slammed into the back seat, hard enough to make the headrest jerk. Cold fingers tried to yank my shoulder back. I held the strap tight and forced myself not to panic. Jan's voice came through the radio, urgent. "Now!" I rolled down my passenger window with my left hand without looking. The motor whined loud in the silence. Cold air rushed in, smelling like algae and old stone. My right hand extended out the window, blind, holding the Velcro strap over black water. The wet thing's grip became claws. It pulled, trying to drag me back, trying to make my hand slip. I felt the strap stretch slightly, as if it didn't want to leave. My throat tore on a grunt. "Get off me." I rasped, not to it, not to Jan, just to the universe. I let go. The Velcro strap fell. I didn't watch it drop. I stared straight ahead. But I heard it. Not a splash. A soft, wet snick, like something caught it midair and tucked it away. The moment that sound happened, the cab changed. The pond stink faded, like a door closed. The cold pressure on my shoulder vanished. The air felt lighter, less thick. Behind me, the wet thing made one last sound, a furious, hollow wail, then nothing. No breathing. No shifting. No seatbelt click. Just empty silence. I didn't trust it. I kept my eyes forward and my hands on the wheel for a full 10 seconds, heart pounding like it was trying to run out of my body. Jan's voice came softer now. Start moving. I turned the wheel straight and eased forward. The truck rolled off the bridge. As soon as my tires hit the far side, my GPS screen blinked once and snapped to life. A normal map, a normal arrow, a normal voice prompt that sounded almost obscene in its cheerfulness. In 0.3 miles, turn right. My throat tightened around a laugh that came out as a sob. I drove. The trees thinned. The road widened. The black pressure eased like a headache fading. Mile marker 18.0, not 17.3. 18.0. I almost pulled over right there just to cry, but Jan's voice snapped, "Don't stop yet." So I didn't. I kept driving until I saw something that belonged to the human world again. A yellow diamond sign that said Deer Crossing. A mailbox. A driveway. A porch light. Normal. The moment I hit the first intersection with a proper stop sign, my whole body started shaking so hard my teeth chattered. I pulled into a gas station parking lot that was still open because, of course, everything stays open on the edge of nowhere now. Fluorescent lights buzzed. A kid in a hoodie mopped the floor inside, like the universe hadn't just tried to eat me. I parked under the lights and killed the engine. The silence inside my cab felt like a miracle. Then, because I couldn't help it anymore, I turned my head and looked into the back seat. Empty. Vet footprints. No. Seatbelt undone. No. Nothing. Just my greasy work jacket tossed on the bench from earlier and a stain on the upholstery where something had been sitting, dark and damp, like a wet sponge left too long. The stain was shaped like a small body. I stared at it until my vision blurred. My hand shook as I grabbed the radio mic. "Jan," I said, voice cracking, "I'm off 17. She let out a breath, so long it hissed through the speaker. "Good. What the fuck was that?" I demanded, and the anger finally broke through the shock. "What the fuck is wrong with that road?" There was a long pause. Then Jan said, very quietly, "We don't talk about it like that." "Like what?" "Like it's a problem you can solve," she said. "It's not. It's a thing you survive." I swallowed hard. "Why do you know so much?" Another pause, longer. Then she said, "Because I was on the bus." My stomach dropped. "You were..." I choked. "No, I was 9, she said, voice flat. "I was sitting on the left side, halfway back. I remember the driver's hands on the wheel. I remember the smell of wet coats. I remember the creek coming up like it wanted us." My throat tightened. "How did you?" "I didn't," she said, and that was the worst part. The casualness. The way she said it like weather. Not all the way. They pulled me out about a mile downstream with my seatbelt still on. I was still buckled, like something tried and failed. A cold nausea rolled through me. "And you work dispatch now?" "Yeah," she said, "because the county figured out if you keep someone who knows the rules behind the desk, fewer people die." I stared at the gas station lights buzzing above my windshield. The normal world looked thin like paper. "And if you don't?" I asked quietly. Jan didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was careful. "Then it picks its own." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. "What do you mean?" "You're alive," she said, ignoring my question. "You got off. You did what most people can't. That means you're marked in a different way now." My mouth went dry again. "Marked how?" Jan swallowed audibly through the speaker. "It knows you can refuse it." That shouldn't have sounded scary. It did. I looked down at my dash without thinking. The little strip of paper with the rules was still wedged under the coin tray, vibrating faintly in the dying heat of the engine. For a split second, the ink looked smeared. For a split second, the words didn't look like my handwriting. They looked like they'd been written by someone else a long time ago, and I'd just been holding on to them for a while. I yanked the paper free and held it closer to my face. Nobody's. 17.3 repeats. Stop count 60/don't stop for crying. Under it, in smaller letters I don't remember writing, was a fourth line. "Do not take the turn home." My blood went cold. "Jan," he whispered. I didn't write this. Silence on the other end. Then, softly, yeah, she said. It writes itself sometimes. That's how you know it's still paying attention. I stared at that fourth line until the words blurred. Why didn't you tell me about the turn home sign? I asked, voice shaking. I couldn't, she said. If I tell you, it knows you expect it. It makes a better bait. You already resisted it once. That means it'll try again, bigger. I swallowed. So what now? I go home. I sleep. I pretend this didn't happen. Jan's voice turned tired. You go home. You lock your doors. You don't answer knocks you're not expecting. And if you hear a kid crying outside, you call me before you do anything. My stomach twisted. How long does that last? A pause. Then, sometimes it lasts a week. Sometimes it lasts forever. I sat in my cab under the gas station lights and tried to picture forever. Explainable forever is one thing. Money problems, bad knees, grief. This kind of forever, where a road can put a wet child in your back seat, felt like living in a crack in reality. What about the guy in the sedan? I asked suddenly because my brain wanted to anchor to something concrete. On the bridge. Jan's voice hardened. Don't. He died, I said, and it came out as a statement, not a question. Jan was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, he'll be part of the fence line now. If the county remembers him enough, he'll get a card. My throat tightened. That's how it stays fed, she said. I stared at the fluorescent lights, buzzing. The kid inside the gas station kept mopping, headphones in, oblivious. I could have gone inside and told him everything. He'd have laughed. He'd have called me crazy. He'd have offered me a hot dog and a weird look. The normal world would have closed around me like a door, and for a second, I wanted that more than anything. Instead, I said, why me? Jan exhaled. Because you were willing to stop for strangers in a ditch, she said. Because you're the kind of person the road likes to test. My jaw clenched. So being decent makes you a target. On that road, Jan said softly, yeah. I drove home in silence. No music, no radio, just the sound of my tires on pavement and my own breathing. Every shadow at the edge of my headlights looked too deep. Every reflective sign made my stomach jump. When I saw a yellow school bus parked behind a fence at the depot near my house, I nearly swerved into the curb. My neighborhood looked normal. White Oak Lane looked normal. My mailbox had my name on it in faded paint, like it always had. But when I turned onto my street, my hands started shaking again. Because a part of me expected the sign to change. Expected the road to be waiting like a dog by a door. It didn't. I parked in my driveway, killed the engine, and sat there with my hands on the wheel for a long time listening. No crying, no tapping, just the creak of my house settling in the dark. A neighbor's TV muffled through walls. A dog barking 2 houses down. Normal. I went inside anyway like I was walking into a trap. I locked the door, then locked it again, then checked the back door, then checked it again. My wife, God bless her, was asleep on the couch with a blanket half off her legs, the TV still on low volume. When I saw her chest rising and falling, something inside me cracked. Relief and terror and exhaustion all at once. I stood there and watched her breathe like it was proof the world still worked. Then she stirred, eyes opening bleary. Dale, she mumbled, you're home late. The sound of my name in a warm, human voice almost made me cry. Yeah, I said hoarsely. Bad call. She frowned. You okay? I want to tell her everything. I want to dump it in her lap like a bag of rotten meat and make her hold it with me. Instead, I forced a shaky smile. Yeah, just tired. She sat up, rubbing her face. You smell like a swamp. My stomach flipped. I walked to the kitchen without answering and scrubbed my hands under hot water until my knuckles hurt. I showered so hard my skin went red. I changed clothes. I threw my work jacket straight into the washing machine and hit start like spinning fabric could erase memories. When I finally climbed into bed, my body collapsed like it had been waiting for permission. Sleep didn't come easy. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt cold fingers on my shoulder. I heard, help me unbuckle in that wet whisper. At some point I must have dozed. because the next thing I remember is the sound. Top, top, soft, polite, on my bedroom window. My eyes snapped open. My wife was breathing beside me, asleep. Top, top. My whole body went cold. Our bedroom window faced the backyard. There shouldn't be anyone back there. We had a fence. We had a motion light. The tapping came again, slower. Top, top, a child's pace. I lay there, frozen, staring at the dark rectangle of the window, heart pounding so hard it made my throat pulse. Top, top. Then a whisper, muffled by glass. Dale. My name slid under the door of my skull like smoke. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The whisper came again, a little more insistent. Dale, help. My mind screamed at me to wake my wife, to grab a flashlight, to yank the curtains open and prove this was just a raccoon or a branch or my brain being an asshole. But Jan's words rang in my head. Don't answer knocks you're not expecting. And something worse. If you hear a kid crying outside, call me before you do anything. I slid my hand slowly across the sheets and grabbed my phone from the nightstand without taking my eyes off the window. The screen lit up. The brightness felt like a gunshot in the dark. The tapping stopped instantly, like it hated the light. I didn't look at the clock. I didn't check notifications. I just hit Jan's number on recent calls and pressed it to my ear. It rang once, twice. Then Jan answered, breathless like she'd been waiting. Yeah, it's here, I whispered. I know, she said, and I hated her again for that. Don't look. I'm not. I hissed, staring at the curtain like it was a wall between me and drowning. It's tapping my window. It said I know, she repeated. My throat tightened. What do I do? Jan's voice was low, steady. Turn on your hallway light, she said. Not the outside light. Inside. And go sit in your living room with your back to the wall. Wake your wife if you have to, but don't tell her why. Just say you heard something. Keep your phone on. What if it? Do not open anything, Jan cut in. Doors, windows, curtains. Nothing. It can't come in unless you make room for it. I swallowed hard. It's calling me. Let it, Jan said. It's fishing. I slid out of bed like my joints were made of glass. My wife mumbled, turning over. I didn't wake her. I couldn't bring her into this. Not yet. I padded down the hallway with my phone pressed to my ear, flipping on lights as I went. Warm yellow lit the walls. The house looked normal again. But behind that normal was the feeling of being watched from outside through every pane of glass. I sat in my living room with my back to the wall like Jan said. The couch fabric scratched my neck. My hand shook so badly my phone buzzed against my cheek. Outside, something moved along the side of my house. Soft footsteps in wet grass. Slow, patient. Then the whisper came again, faint through the wall. Dale. Jan's voice stayed calm. Breathe. You're doing fine. You sound like you've done this before, I whispered. A pause. Then Jan said quietly, I have. My stomach twisted. At your house. Yeah, she said. After the bus. After I grew up enough for it to remember me as a person, not just a kid. It taps. It whispers. It tries to make you curious. It tries to make you guilty. Outside, something scraped against my siding like a fingernail. I clenched my jaw. Then, from the backyard, a new sound. A child crying. Real sounding. Heartbreaking. The kind of crying that grabs your insides and squeezes. My eyes filled with tears without permission. Jan's voice came sharp. Don't move. The crying grew louder, closer to the back door. It sounded like a kid huddled on my patio, sobbing into their hands. My brain lit up with images. A lost neighbor kid, a runaway, someone hurt, someone cold. My hand twitched toward the back door lock. Jan's voice snapped like a slap. Dale, don't. I froze. The crying shifted into words between sobs. Please, please, it's cold. My throat burned. Jan's voice softened. That's not a kid, she said. That's the road using your decency like a key. The crying stopped abruptly. Silence. Then a tiny, polite knock on my back door. Top, top. My whole body shook. Another tap. Top, top. Then the wet whisper right on the other side of the door. so close it felt like it was inside my ear. "Help me unbuckle." My stomach dropped. I hadn't told Jan it said that phrase. She already knew. Jan's voice came through my phone, steady as a metronome. "Don't answer. Don't talk. Don't acknowledge. Let it get bored." I swallowed hard. My mouth tasted like bile. The knocks continued for a long time. Too long. Long enough that my muscles started to cramp from tension. Eventually, the tapping slowed. It moved away from the door, soft footsteps fading into the yard. Then the motion light outside clicked on. For a split second, light poured through my kitchen window. I didn't look at the window. I kept my eyes on the wall like it was my job. But in the corner of my vision, I saw a shape pass through that light. Small, vet, wrongly smooth. Then darkness returned. Silence. I sat there for another hour, trembling, listening for any hint of sound. Jan stayed on the phone the whole time, breathing, not speaking unless I spoke. Like a lifeline you don't tug unless you have to. When the first gray hint of dawn started to leak into my living room, the pressure eased. The air felt less thick. My shoulders dropped for the first time in hours. Jan exhaled. "It's gone for now," she said. "For now." I repeated, bitter. "Yeah," she said. "For now." I didn't go to work the next day. I called in sick with a voice that sounded like someone else's. My boss cursed and told me to get better. He didn't know better wasn't a cold you shake. I spent the day doing normal things like they were rituals, making coffee, taking out trash, walking the perimeter of my house like a guard dog. I avoided looking at my truck. I avoided thinking about the stain in the back seat. By evening, my wife had noticed something was wrong. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, watching me pick at food I couldn't taste. "What happened last night?" she asked gently. "You were up all night. You kept turning lights on and off. I thought you were sleepwalking." I swallowed hard. I wanted to tell her. But how do you tell someone a road tried to use my empathy to drag me into water and now it knocks on our door like a child? "So elite. Bad call," I said again. "Guy almost died. Messed me up." Her eyes softened. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You're a good man," she said. "You always try to help." The word stabbed, because that was exactly what made me bait. That night, nothing knocked. No tapping, no crying. Just normal darkness. I almost convinced myself it was over. On the third night, I got a call. Unknown number. I stared at the screen and felt my stomach drop. My finger hovered over decline, but the number kept ringing, relentless. My wife looked up from the couch. "You gonna get that?" My throat went tight. I answered without thinking, because I'm an idiot and because some part of me still wanted to believe in normal. "Hello." Static. Then a voice I recognized, muffled like it was coming through water. It was the guy in the hoodie from the ditch. The SUV driver. "Hey," he said, voice shaky. "It's Dale, right?" The tow guy. My blood turned to ice. He said my name, out loud, through my phone. Jan had said the road can use your name if it hears it on 17. I wasn't on 17 now. I was in my living room, safe, and yet the hair on my arms rose. "Who is this?" I asked, voice tight. He laughed nervously. "It's me, man. The guy you pulled out. Look, I'm sorry about earlier. I was pissed. You saved my ass." My mouth went dry. "How did you get this number?" A pause. "A dispatch gave it to me." My stomach lurched. Jan would never. Unless it wasn't dispatch. Unless it was the road. The guy kept talking. "Listen, I'm out here again. Same road. I know, I'm stupid. But I dropped my phone in the ditch last time, I think. And now my GPS is acting weird and..." In the background of his call, I heard it. A faint crying from somewhere close to him. A child crying, thin and wet. My chest tightened. "Where are you?" I demanded. He sounded confused. "County 17. "What?" My blood ran cold. "You need to get off it," I snapped. "Now." He chuckled like he thought I was messing with him. "Dude, are you serious? It's just a road." The crying in the background got louder. His voice shifted, uncertainty creeping in. "Wait, do you hear that?" I clenched my jaw. "Don't stop." "What?" he asked. "Don't stop." I repeated, harsher. Whatever you do, don't stop. And don't turn on your brights. There was a pause. Then his voice dropped. Man, what the fuck is going on? There's a bus. My stomach flipped. Do not pass it, I barked. What? He gasped. How do you? I could hear his breathing now, fast. Tires on wet pavement. Wind noise. Panic. Turn around, I said. First gravel patch. Turn around. He started to say something, and then the line filled with a sound like water rushing. A huge, wet roar. Then the call cut off. I sat there in my living room, staring at my phone like it had bitten me. My wife stared at me, eyes wide. Dale? What was that? I swallowed hard. My mouth tasted like metal. That, I said hoarsely, wasn't for me. My phone rang again instantly. Unknown number. I didn't answer. It rang and rang until it stopped. Then a new notification appeared. A voicemail. My hands shook as I stared at it. I didn't want to play it. I didn't want to hear my name again. But curiosity is a poison that comes in small doses. I hit play. Static at first. Then that wet whisper, close and intimate, like it was in the room with me. Help me unbuckle. And then softer, like a secret between us. Dale, come back. I threw the phone onto the couch like it was on fire. My wife stood up, terrified now. Dale, what the hell is happening? I opened my mouth and finally told her the part that didn't sound insane. I can't talk about it, I said, voice breaking. But we're leaving town for a bit. Her eyes narrowed. What? I'm serious, I said. Pack a bag. Now. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. Maybe she didn't. I didn't recognize me either. We left that night. We drove to her sister's 2 counties over. I didn't take County 17. I didn't even take routes that came close. I turned my GPS off and followed paper directions like it was 1998. Her sister thought we were having a fight. She offered wine. She asked gentle questions. I smiled and lied until my face hurt. That night in the guest room, I slept for the first time since the ditch. No knocks, no taps, no whispers. In the morning, I almost believed distance mattered. Then my wife's sister's kid, 8 years old, missing a front tooth, came into the kitchen and said, Uncle Dale, can you help me with my seatbelt? I froze mid-step. The kid held a booster seat strap, innocent, smiling. My wife laughed. He's fine, she told him. Your uncle's just tired. I forced a smile so hard it made my cheeks hurt. I helped the kid like a normal person would. But my hands shook the whole time because the road didn't just want me on County 17. It wanted me thinking about buckles. It wanted me flinching at children. It wanted me to ruin my own life piece by piece until I was alone enough to follow any sign it put in front of me. After a week, Jan called. I answered because seeing her number felt like seeing a lighthouse. Her voice was tired. You can't run forever, she said. I'm not running, I lied. Jan didn't humor it. It called someone else, she said. The hoodie guy, the one you pulled out. He's missing. My stomach clenched. What? They found his car on the shoulder near the bridge, she said. Seatbelt unbuckled. Doors locked. No blood. No body. My throat went tight. Jesus. You warned him, Jan said quietly. That matters. It doesn't sound like it mattered. I snapped, anger flaring because anger was easier than guilt. Jan didn't argue. Listen, she said. The county wants to talk to you. My stomach flipped. About what? About the protocol, she said. About staffing. I frowned. Staffing what? A long pause. Then Jan said quietly, my desk. Cold spread through my chest. What the fuck are you talking about? Jan's voice cracked just a fraction. I've been doing this a long time, she said, and it's getting louder for me. It wants to pull me back. It's been showing me signs. People keep calling my name on the road. I swallowed hard. So quit. Jan laughed, bitter and wet. You think quitting makes it stop? Dale, it doesn't care about your job title. It cares about the story. And mine's ending. My throat tightened. No, it needs someone who can keep others alive, she said. Someone who knows the rules and can keep their voice steady when a driver is crying on the line. I stared at the kitchen wall of my sister-in-law's house, heart pounding. You want me to be dispatched. I want you to live. Jan said. And I want fewer people to die. My jaw clenched. That's not a choice. That's a curse. Jan didn't deny it. Yeah, she said. It is. I went back. Not because I wanted to, not because I was brave, because the call started coming even when I wasn't on the road. Because my wife started hearing tapping too, fan in our windows, and I could see fear taking root in her eyes like mold. Because the road doesn't just haunt you. It spreads into your life until your life becomes another ditch. The county played it like bureaucracy, like everything is paperwork and liability. A sheriff met me in a fluorescent-lit office and didn't look me in the eye. A man in a suit slid forms across a desk and talked about stress leave and public safety staffing. Nobody said haunted road. Nobody said bus kids. Jan sat in the corner, pale, hands wrapped around a styrofoam cup of coffee like it was life support. When we were alone, she finally looked at me. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her skin looked gray, like she hadn't seen sunlight in months. It's already looking for you, she said softly. I know, I whispered. Jan nodded. Then you know what you have to do. I wanted to scream. I wanted to punch a wall. I wanted to drive my tow truck into the creek just to end the story on my terms. Instead, I signed the papers. I became dispatch. The first night, I sat behind that desk. The radio hissed like a living thing. The phone lines felt like veins. The map on the wall looked like a body. County 17, a scar running through it. I taped the protocol to the desk where I could see it. I wrote the first 3 rules again, even though Jan said writing makes it real because I needed my hands to do something. Nobody eats. 17.3 repeats. Stop count 60. Don't stop for crying. Do not take the turn home. Do not pass the bus. Jan stood behind me, watching like a teacher watching a student take over a dangerous machine. Does it ever stop? I asked her quietly. Jan stared at the dark window. No, she said. You just get better at saying no. That was the last night I saw her at that desk. A week later, a tow driver called in, voice shaking, saying he'd seen a woman walking barefoot along the shoulder of 17, soaked, hair plastered to her face. He said she kept whispering something he couldn't understand. When he finally slowed enough to hear, he said the woman looked up and whispered, clear as day, "Help me unbuckle." He said she smiled when he flinched. I didn't ask her name. I didn't need to. Now this is what my nights look like. A call comes in, a tired voice, a shaky laugh. Someone saying, "Hey man, I'm on County 17 and my GPS is acting weird." And I don't use their name if they give it to me. I don't say mine. I speak like every word is bait. Sometimes they call me rude. Sometimes they call me crazy. Sometimes they cry. I read them the rules in my calmest voice. I tell them not to use their brights. I tell them if the mile marker repeats, stop and count 60. Don't look at your phone. Don't look at your clock. I tell them if they hear crying in the ditch, they can slow down, but they cannot stop. I tell them if they see a yellow school bus with hazards on, they do not pass it. They do not follow it. They turn around at the first gravel patch. I tell them if something hits their truck, they do not get out. And every single time, when I finish, there's a pause on the line where I can hear them breathing. And in that pause, in the static under their breath, I sometimes hear a wet whisper that isn't mine and isn't theirs. Soft, patient, familiar. Help me unbuckle. The first time I heard it through my headset, I ripped the earpiece off so fast it snapped the cord. Now I just keep my voice steady and keep talking over it like it's not there. Because if you acknowledge it, it acknowledges you back. And sometimes, late at night, when the phone lines are quiet and the radio only hisses, I glance at the county map on the wall, and I swear County 17 looks darker than the paper around it. Like a bruise that never heals. Sometimes I smell pond water in the office, even though the windows are shut and the air is stale and hot. Sometimes the clock on the wall flickers, and for a split second the second hand pauses, like time itself is listening. And sometimes, this is the part one don't tell anyone. When I'm alone and it's quiet enough to hear my own heartbeat, I hear a tiny, polite tapping coming from inside the filing cabinet where we keep old reports. Top top, like something trapped inside paperwork, waiting to be opened. The county calls me a dispatcher now, but I know what I really am. I'm the evidence custodian for a road that eats stories. And if you ever find yourself on County 17 in the rain, if your GPS spins and your mile marker repeats, and you hear crying in the ditch that sounds like it's meant just for you, don't stop. Whatever you do, don't stop.